Hey, today in the Director's Take, we are going to look at story idea formula. That's right, a story idea formula that you can use to make sure that when you're looking at your script, you have indeed the right story and one that will be successful for you. So let's get started. So the story idea formula is indeed a formula, and it's something that we're going to do. It's mathematical almost, that you just look at each step, you take that step and you move forward, and you'll know whether or not your story reflects a great formula that will be successful. So here's what we're going to do in developing a story idea. We're going to take the main character. We're going to make sure they have a strong want. They're going to make decisions and take actions accordingly. They're going to face obstacles they have to overcome. And as a result, you have a great story idea. That's how it works. Nice and simple. So let's take a closer look, starting out with the main character. To do that, I'm going to use a story that sounds really familiar to you. A restless farm boy wants to become a hero like his father. So he goes on a mission to rescue a princess. But the Empire will kill him if he's caught. Dun, dun, dun. All right, we actually know that to be Star Wars, so I don't have to surprise you. You know it's Star Wars. Luke Skywalker is a farm boy working on his uncle's farm. He wants to be a hero because he's tired of what's going on with the Empire and the Republic, and he decides to go find out what's going on with this princess, because as you know, R2-D2 showed a little image of her asking for Obi-Wan Kenobi's help. And as they start off on their adventure, they realize that the Empire could kill them and the mission would fail. So we know what's at stake. So let's get started first by talking about the main character. Now, the main character in this case we know is Luke Skywalker. In the beginning, when you first watch that movie, if you haven't seen it before, or any movie for that matter, you need to know, who is this guy? What's their normal life look like? As a result, to introduce the main character, you have the first, I would say, if you were to divide your feature film into 8 sequences, the first sequence is all about their normal life. What does normal life look like for the kid? In this case, we know that he had done some flying of spaceships, shooting at some kind, I forgot what the name of the rats were, wombats, I think they were wombats or something, flying in the canyons with his buddy and so on, but he also took care of his chores at home, dealing with the farm. So we know he's got a little bit of technology understanding. He's a hands-on, active type person, proactive, makes decisions based on whatever is driving him. So we have set up a character here that is at least fascinating to watch, if nothing else. But more importantly, there's enough things going on that we don't know about him that we need to hunt down and find out. Now, within the log line that I started with earlier, we used the wording, a restless farm boy. Now, why is it that it says restless? It says restless on purpose because when we know he's restless, he's going to make decisions just because he's tired of holding steady. He wants to get out there and do something and make a huge difference. So this is something that we always have to consider. What is it that's going to drive the person? In this case, it's his restlessness. He needs to be a part of the exciting world that's going on, the big battle, galactic battle, and yet he's just taking care of a farm. He's bored. So as a director, you're going to look for keywords. If it just said farm boy, and it doesn't say what kind of farm boy or what kind of background he has, or give you something so that you know he needs to be able to grow from being this to something like this. If you don't have that, you need to make it up. You need to talk with whoever your star is, come up with something and solidify it, because that key to restlessness drives the story. So it's important that you give that consideration. Okay, let's move on now. Once we know who he is, we have to understand what it is he wants. Now, we had talked a moment ago about the fact that he wanted to be a hero like his father. So we don't totally know yet in the beginning what his father did to be a hero. We know he battled Darth Vader. We don't know yet that he was Darth Vader. There are a lot of things going on here where you have to parcel out the information throughout the film to keep anticipation in the audience and to keep giving them little reveals, keep their interest perked, and keep them moving forward, trying to figure out what's next. The key is we do need to know without any shadow of a doubt that he wants to be a hero. He wants to be something more than he is. And he's going to keep on trying to reach for that. His ego is going to cause him to overreach. And his circumstances, taking one step at a time and overcoming obstacles, is going to cause him to reach correctly. And which is going to win out, his overreaching or the corrected steps? That becomes a very interesting aspect from a directing perspective. How are you going to develop that character? I always like to do it from the standpoint that if Act 1 is 2 sequences, going back to the 8 sequences I mentioned earlier, your first 2 sequences are your Act 1, your next 2 sequences is Act 2A, and the next 2 sequences Act 2B, and the last 2 sequences is Act 3. So in the middle, you have 4 sequences, Act 2A and 2B, that make up the second act. And during that time, that's when he does all the battling and fighting from the internal standpoint as far as who is he and how is he going to move forward. And also, how is he going to turn his internal win? Eventually he wins and knows exactly how to move forward. How is he going to turn that internal win into an external win so we see the action plot line resolved in a positive manner? These are things the director has to look at. You have to figure out that process and how to do it. If all you're trying to do is just capture this scene that is written on the screenplay and you're not thinking through the levels of these internal and external battles, you're missing it as a director. Yet you have to dive into what those are, figure out how to develop them, and make them happen by moving forward with them. So in this case, by us saying he wants to be a hero like his dad, we now, the audience, needs to learn about his dad and learn about him and what the gap is and how he's going to overcome that gap and so on. Because if it's just a circumstantial change, it ain't real. It's not substantive. So the battle is real. We have to go through the process to find out. Okay, so next on the formula is the action that the kid takes. Now, in this case, with Luke Skywalker talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi and learning a little bit about his dad, he decides, he's going to help him by going to, I think it was Alderaan or somewhere, to save the princess. So the key is that we need him to start through those steps. And as we watch that, just before Act 3 kicks in, lo and behold, we find out that Obi-Wan decides to turn off his lightsaber so that he can enter the spiritual realm instead of the physical realm, so he can continue to help Skywalker succeed at being the hero he needs to be. Although we don't understand that at the point where he is struck down by Darth Vader. We do later, but not at that point in time. However, as a director, you've read the whole story. You know where it's headed. You know what kind of anticipation to build in the audience and how to overcome each of the obstacles in what way and how much stumbling will be required in the process of learning to overcome those obstacles. And you have to parcel that out appropriately in each given scene and make sure those things are showing up in every scene that is written in the screenplay. It's almost like a chapter of the book. If one of the chapters is empty and really doesn't play out any of those key elements, why is it in the story? You have to do that kind of analytical work from a directing standpoint and make sure you see the vision fulfilled every step of the way. There has to be a point of growth, or at least one step forward and 2 steps back, and then sometime he gets 2 or 3 steps forward. That is a must as a director. You have to know what is that action specifically that he's going to take and see how it plays out. In this case, we, of course, say the action is him going after the princess. He's going to go on a mission to rescue her, and that is what he's going to do. Well, all of Act 2 is rescuing the mission, princess and the mission. So it's a very complex mission, but it's super critical because that's the heartbeat of his growth to become a hero like his father. Okay, now let's talk more about those obstacles that he faces. Lots of obstacles, lots of them. As soon as they make the decision, he's got the struggle with the uncle saying, look, I got to leave. I need to do whatever. And nothing's going to go right. He gets out of there to blow off some steam, comes back and finds out that everyone at the farm is dead. Oh my gosh. Now he is an orphan, so to speak. Although legitimately he always was an orphan. But the bottom line is he now has to make decisions on his own without parental advice. That makes the criticality of the decisions even more important to impact his inner story as well as what it will play out as in the exterior story. Now, let's talk from the standpoint of what other kinds of obstacles are faced. You know, they need to get a spaceship, they need to deal with Han Solo, and suddenly they're being chased by people and they have to go to hyper light speed. I mean, there's just, you know, in the cantina, there was 1 or 2 obstacles to overcome, depending on which version. There's the battle at the ship itself. Then there's taking off and trying to outrun them and going to hyperspeed. I mean, it's just obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And that's just the beginning. You know, what about when they make their way onto the Death Star? What do they need to do there? You know, because they're going to take their ship in and they're going to park it and they're going to try and get her out of the jail. And, you know, I mean, they even have the garbage compressor being one of the obstacles to overcome. There's just constant obstacles, one after another. Some that he's up for, some that he's not up for. But in each case, he matures, he grows in learning how to be a hero and how to put himself to the side for the sake of others. And we see an incredible story unfold because each obstacle reveals the value of every heroic decision. And in this case, with the log line, we're just reminded that it's a life or death situation. If he's caught, he is killed. So we know the stakes beyond any shadow of a doubt. And that in of itself is a critical element to driving the importance of the story and why an audience member needs to continue watching. So let's review the formula. You need a main character. We need to know who that person is and what they're all about. We have to learn what their desire is, what their goal is in life, what they're going to chase after, the different actions that they're going to take as a result of those desires and wants, the obstacles they face and what they have to constantly be overcoming to try and achieve that goal. If those things are in your screenplay, you have a great story idea. And with every great story idea comes big box office success. Unfortunately, a lot of directors forget the want part, or they don't develop their character, or they're missing a bunch of action because, oh, well, this is a feel-good piece, or the obstacles aren't significant enough for anyone to really pay attention or worry about it. You have to have every one of these 4 categories be perfectly set within the realm of the story for it to be a great story idea. And again, that's the job of the director, to make sure it's in the script. If it's not, put it in. Make sure that people can execute on those things so that when you're filming and even in post when it's being edited, make sure those elements are clear in each of the scenes so that the audience is understanding that story development. Then the culmination is a successful story. It's really that simple. Well, I know this was a little bit of a unique episode, but I hope you understand it well enough to know what to look for when you're taking a look at your scripts, and make sure that you create a great story. See you next time.